Hi, welcome to the Gemara on Tet Vav Amud Bet. We're starting 6 lines up from the bottom of the Amud, and this is a review video of material that you guys learned in Chavruta and then was presented in class. The Gemara continues to explain the verses in the Megillah. On that night, the king's sleep was disturbed, and of course, literally in the verse, this refers to King Achashverosh and how he couldn't sleep, and then he called for his book of memories to be read, and that was how he was reminded about Mordechai and what he had done, saving him, and the story goes on from there. Amar Rabbi Tanchum, Nadadah Shnat Malcho Shel Olam. The sleep of the king of the world was disturbed, meaning it was actually God's sleep that was disturbed because of all that was going on. V'Rabbanan Amri, and the rabbi said, Nadadu Elyonim, Nadadu Tachtonim. The upper places were disturbed and the lower places were disturbed. Rashi here says Nadadu Elyonim, this idea that it was, also sort of up in heaven that things were disturbed. Shahayu Melachim Mavhilim Oto Kol Halayla. The angels were kind of bothering bothering Achashverosh all night. V'amrulo Kafui Tova, and they said to him, you're ungrateful. Shilam Tova Lemisha Asa'a. You should give back good to the one who did it, meaning you need to repay Mordechai. How could you not have? Lashon Mori, that's the root that it comes from. V'yesh omrim nadadu elyonim k'dei sheyirbu b'tachtonim levakesh al hadavar. And some say, well, the angels were sort of really upset in order to increase the prayers of those below, of the Jews. So both on high and below, people were upset, or people and angels were upset about what was going on. Rava Amar, Shnat Hamelech Achashverosh Mamash. No, this was really the sleep of King Achashverosh that was disturbed, and here's why. Naflale milta bedate. Literally, a thing fell into his thought, right? A thought occurred to him. Amar, Mai dekaman desminte Esther leHaman. Why now did Esther invite Haman to this party? Dilma etzak hashak leilave, dahahu gavra lemigdale. Maybe they've had a thought. Shakal is literally to sort of to throw, right? The thought was thrown onto them about Hahu Gavra, about that person, meaning himself, to kill him. Like basically, meaning maybe they're plotting to kill me. Hadar Amar, and then he returned and said, Ihachi lo hava Gavra jarachim li. If so, there's no person who would have mercy on me. No one would help me. To have a modeli who would tell me that they're planning to kill me, right? No one seems to be out there helping me. Hadar Amar, and so then he came back again and said, Dilma ika inish to avad bi tivuta. Maybe there's a person, ika is yesh, there is. Maybe there's a person who did something good for me, did a favor for me, velo parate, and I haven't paid him back. Mishum hachi mimnei inshe velo maguli, and for that reason, people have held back and not revealed to me. Meaning not revealed what's going on to me. Miyad, immediately, Vayomer lahavi et sefer hazichronot divrei ha'amim vayuni kraim. That's the continuation of the pasuk. He couldn't sleep, and so he called for his book to be read to him. This phrase, milamed shnikraim alehen, it teaches that they were sort of read by themselves. They almost read themselves. Vayimatzei katuv, and the verse continues. Writing was written. Meaning they found the writing. So katav mi ba'ile. It should have said katav, not v'masei chatuv, but rather katav, like a written thing. Rather, this is more like they found writing. Melamed sheshimshi mochek v'Gavriel kotev. This teaches that Shimshi was erasing, as the reading was going on. Shimshi was erasing, and Gavriel was writing. So Shimshi is a scribe who apparently hated the Jews. I think Rashi tells us that. Yeah. So Fer HaMelech Sonei Yisrael Haya. So he was a scribe who hated the Jews. Umimot Koresh Haya, and he came from the days of Koresh. So he famously hated the Jews. So he's like erasing the words, but Gavriel, the angel, is writing. So the act of writing is taking place as this is going on. Amar Rabbi Asi, Darash Rabbi Shila Ish Kfar Tzimrata, Uma Ktav Shel Amata Shel Zchutan Shel Yisrael Eino Nimchak, Ktav Shel Amala Lo Kol Sheken. Just as writing that is below, right, writing on earth, that is in the merit of the Jewish people, it doesn't get erased. Writing that is up above, how much more so? Meaning, if God writes something down that's good about us, for sure it could never get erased. This story is a proof of that. Then the story in the Megillah itself continues. Lo na'asai mo davar. Nothing was done for him, right? That's what people tell him. He did this great thing for you, and nothing was done. Amar Rava, lo mipnei she'ohavin et Mordechai, ela mipnei shesonim et Haman. They didn't say this because they loved Mordechai so much. It wasn't meant to be a good thing for him, but rather it was because they hated Haman so much that they were willing to say this. And that's right. That sort of shows you how the situation still is in the kingdom. Mordechai is being praised, but it's not that the servants actually loved him so much. They weren't trying to get something good done for Mordechai. Hechin lo, that's the continuation. Also going on in the verses, this is the reason that Haman has come to speak to Achashverosh, is to tell him about the gallows that he's prepared. So if you look at the full context of this verse, just to get a sense down here, right? The king said, "Who's in the chatzer?" And Haman was there. So he had come literally to tell the king, "Now's the time to hang Mordechai. I'm ready." Tana lo hechin. And this Tanaitic teaching teaches us he actually prepared it for himself. Right? It says hechin lo, that he prepared for him in some unconscious, subconscious way. He'd actually prepared the gallows for himself. V'asechen leMordechai, and then this verse which says, after Haman describes all the great things that should be done for someone who's helped the king says, okay, go do this to Mordechai. Amar le, Manu Mordechai. So Haman says, who's Mordechai? Amar le, and the king says to him, Hayehudi, because that's how the verse continues, Mordechai Hayehudi. So he says, well, it's the Jewish Mordechai, that's the one who I want you to honor. Amar le, Tuva Mordechai Ika Yehuda. He's like, there's lots of Jews named Mordechai. Amar le, Hayoshev B'shar HaMelech. So the king says to him, no, it's the one who sits in the king's gate. That's the one I mean. Amar le, Sagile B'chad Diskarta, Inami B'chad Nahara. He says, for that guy, it would be enough to give him one village or one river, meaning like tax one area of your land and give him that money and be done with it. Amar le, Hanami havle. He says, good, give that to him too. Right, good idea. You can do that also, but al tapel davar mikol asher dibarta. But also don't leave off a single thing from that which you have said. That's the continuation of the pasuk. Al tapel davar mikol asher dibarta. So Haman now has no choice, and the Megillah continues. Haman takes the clothing and the horse. So here's the story the Gemara tells about that. Azal ashkechei yatve rabbanan kame. Haman went and saw that the rabbis were sitting before him. Yatve is to sit. They were sitting before Mordechai. Umachve lahu hilchot kmitza, and he was showing them the laws of kmitza. Hilchot kmitza l'rabbanan. Which I think Rashi will explain to you. Rabbanan, he says, were Talmidav, right? So Mordechai is teaching the other rabbis. And Hilchot Kmitza, Doresh b'Inyano shel Yom, v'Shisha Asar b'Nisan haya, hu Yom Tnufata Omer. So it was the day of the Omer. That's where they were on the calendar. Whoops. And so he was teaching them Inyana Dioma, and he was teaching them about Kmitza, which is scooping with your fingers the flour for offerings. So something that was relevant to the Beit HaMikdash. Kivan dechazi Mordechai afik lekable v'susei miachad biyadeh. Oops, sorry. Mirtat. So when Mordechai saw him, it saw Haman, that he was coming out to meet him and the horse was in his hands. Mirtat, he was afraid. Amar lahu, l'Rabbanan, so he said to the rabbis, Hayrashia miktal nafshi ka'ati. He said, that bad man is coming to kill me. Zilu mikame de lo tichvu b'gachalato. Get away from me so you don't get burnt by his coals, right? You don't want to get in the crossfire. You better leave. V'hahi shata nitzatef Mordechai v'kam le'litzluta. So at that moment, Mordechai wrapped himself in his talit and began to pray. Ata Haman v'yativ lekamayu, ve'orich ad tisalik Mordechai l'slute. So Haman came and sat before him and waited until Mordechai was finished praying. Amar lahu, so Haman said to him, B'maya skito, what were you busy with? Amrulay, so Mordechai says back to him, Bisman shebeit hamikdash kayam, at the time when the temple existed, man demindav mincha maiti mali kumte disolta umikaperle. Someone who wanted to bring a mincha offering would scoop up, would take a scoopful with their hands of solet, which is fine flour, and that would be an atonement for them. Amar lahu, so Haman says, Ata mali kumte kimcha didchu v'dachi asara alfe kikari kaspa didi. So Mordechai is now, Haman responds to this idea of, this is what you were teaching them, and says, well, it seems like your handful of flour has come and been doche, pushed aside my 10,000 silver coins, right? What you do is stronger than what I did. I paid Achashverosh to kill you off, but it's not as effective as what you do. Amar le, so Mordechai said to him, Rasha, you evil person, Eved shekana nechasim, Eved lemi v'nechasim lemi. If a servant buys property, who does the servant belong to, and who does the property belong to? Meaning, it's a way of saying to Haman, like, that money was mine anyway, you're mine anyway, like it shouldn't have had any effect. Amar le, so Haman says back to him, Kum lavush hanimani v'rachov haisusa, debai lach malka. So he says, okay, now get up, put on this clothing, and ride on this horse, because that's what the king wants you to do. Amar le, Mordechai says back to him, Lo yachilna adza ayilna lebe bane ve'eshkol mezaya. I can't possibly do that until I go to the bathhouse and get a haircut. Because it's not the way of the world to use the things of the king looking like this. Remember that Mordechai's been in mourning now for a while because of what's about to happen, so he's not looking his best. Shadra Esther v'aser tinhu lechulhu be'bane v'lechulhu umane. Esther, who's in on the plot, sent out a missive, I guess, and locked up all the bathhouse attendants and all of the barbers, all the haircutters. Aile ihu lebebane ve'asre. So Haman had to do it himself. Haman went to the bathhouse and bathed Mordechai. Ve'azil va'aiti zuza mibete ve'kashakil be'mezaya. And he also went to his house and got zuzah, which are scissors, and he did he had to do the haircut. Bahadi de kashakile ingad v'idnach. As he was cutting Mordechai's hair, he got faint and cried out or sighed. Amar le, amai kamit nachat. So Mordechai says, like, why are you sighing? Like, what's wrong? Amar le, and Haman says to him, Gavra to have a chashiva lemalcha michulhu rav nuhe hashta lishave balane v'safar. Sorry. He basically says to him, like, should a man who was, close to the king, a man who was, thought of to be closer to the king than all the other important people, now he's basically an attendant in a bathhouse and a barber, right? Like, look how far I've fallen. How could I not be upset? Amar le, Mordechai says back to him, Rasha, you evil person. V'lav safar shel kfar kartsum hayita? Weren't you once the barber of a place called Kfar Kartsum? Tana, because we have a Tanaic tradition that teaches, Haman safar shel Kfar Kartsum haya. He was actually, once upon a time, Haman was the barber of this village, Esrim v'shtayim shana. For 22 years, he worked in that job. Bater de shaklin hula mazaya. After he had gotten the haircut, lavshin hulamane, he got dressed in the clothing. Amar le, so he said to him, meaning Haman said to Mordechai, sak v'rachav, okay, like, go up and get on the horse. Amar le, and Mordechai says to him, lo yachil nitzicha chisha chilai mi meta anita. Mordechai says, well, I can't possibly climb onto that horse because I have so little strength. I'm so weak from all my days of fasting. Gachin Vesalik. So Haman bent down and Mordechai got up on the horse, meaning Mordechai stepped up on his back in order to get onto the horse. Kisalik ba'atbe, and as he was getting up, he kicked him, meaning Mordechai kicked Haman. Amar le, and Haman says to him, Lo k'tivlechu bin folevecha al tisnach. So Haman quotes a pasuk from Mordechai and says, doesn't it say for you guys, doesn't it say in your Torah that you're not supposed to rejoice in the downfall of your enemies? Amar le, and Mordechai says back to him, Hani mili b'Yisrael. That's only about Jews. We're not allowed to rejoice when Jews have a downfall. Aval b'didchu k'tiv, but when it comes to you guys, it's written, Va'ata b'motemo tidroch. You should step on their high places. So basically saying, nope, no rules about you. I can treat you however badly I want. And that's the end of that part of the story that the Gemara tells, and we'll stop there.